What's up? We got The Flash Season 4, Episode 4, Elongated Journey into Night. So this episode starts off with Cisco and Gypsy, of all characters, and they're basically talking about, and Cisco's like, hey, we should trade the first name basis. And she's like, her name is Gypsy. So then she goes, but that's when Danny Trejo shows up. Machete, boots from Dora the Explorer, The Lost City of Gold. He's here. It's Danny Trejo. And he's basically like, ooh, Cisco, I gotta kill you. And Cisco's like, and she's like, Dad? And he's like, nice to meet you, sir. And he's like, So yeah, so let me start off with, so then we have Anthony Bellows. We have Anthony Bellows, the mayor, and he's like, and he's like, thank you, Joe, and everyone. So they're basically tracking some meds when they discover one of the meds was Ralph Dibny. Yes, the original guy that got killed in the original timeline, but then Barry created. So the whole story of Ralph Dibny in the Arrowverse, in the Flash, is that he died during season 1, but then during season 3 when Barry created Flashpoint, he made it so he never died, so he became a metahuman. And Barry's like, and he's like, hey Joe, and Barry Allen, and he's like, what's up, Dibny? And he's like, wow, you gained some weight. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, what do you need, Dibny? Because Dibny was doing this. Yeah, Dibny tried to sleep with one of his clients, but she was like, no, I don't want you. So he's like, what do you want, Alan? So he's like, hey, do you know anything about being on a bus? And he's like, yeah, no, I don't know anything about that. So, yeah, but then these guys show up and try to make his pants fall down, but that's when his powers activate, and Joe and Barry are just walking by saying, wow, that guy has not changed one bit. And he's like, yeah. And then they see him, and they're like, yeah, he was on that bus. So then Iris walks in, seeing a elongated foot, and she's just like, guys? And then we just see Dibny, like, all stretched out. And they're like, and he's like, hey, he's like silly putty. He's like, silly putty. He's like, Alan, you and your Star Labs nerd better figure out a way to help me. So yeah, so Cisco basically told Danny Trejo that he is the owner of Star Labs, and Barry's like his assistant. And then he looks at Harry and says, you look like the guy that I sent my daughter to kill. And then Harry's like, yeah, I get that a lot. Yeah, that was kind of, it was a good HR reference, and it was a good HR reference, but it was also a good joke. So yeah. So Caitlin basically feels bad for Dibny, but Barry's like, hey, that dude did some pretty bad stuff. And he's like, yeah. And he basically labels all the bus men as villains because, yeah, Barry is a jerk. Yeah. Didn't we learn this in a lot of seasons, not to judge people for their past? That's what Barry's basically doing. He's judging Dibny for the past, because in the past, Barry and Dibny used to be like, Dibny was on the CCP when Barry became a cop, but then Dibny pointed to evidence that led there was a murder of a wife, and Dimmy let them believe that the husband did it. But then Barry being good CSI, tested the blood, and there was no DNA on it, and Dimmy got fired for tampering with evidence. Yeah, basically, and that's why he hates Barry, because he basically blamed Barry for getting rid of the job they had. I'm surprised in the original time, if this happened in the original timeline when Barry learned that Ralph Dibny was, wouldn't have Barry known who Ralph Dibny was? I'm guessing that was before the show thought of Ralph Dibny as a character, but in season 1, when Ebert Thornwells mentioned Ralph Dibny as a character, Barry wasn't fazed at all that Ralph Dibny was dead. I'm guessing I know that was before Ralph Dibny was thought as a character, so Barry having, they didn't think Barry, I would thought Barry would have been surprised. But anyway, back to the actual episode itself. Breacher has coffee with Cisco, Gypsy, and Cisco with Breacher and Gypsy, and Breacher's like, yo dude, I'm gonna hunt you down, because I don't think you're worthy for my daughter. For his daughter, but totally. Yeah, and he's like, and he's like, 5, 4, are you trying to count down? And he's like, yeah, no powers, no anything, just dot. So he's like, hey Cisco, Harry's like, hey Cisco, you're smart, and he's like, and Breacher's like, hey, where's Cisco? And he's like, he went that way. So he's like, Sisky, I know where you are. I love how he calls him Sisky, it's so funny. So then Cisco's like, boom man, I trapped you. And he's like, yeah, I got this off of a hunter back in another world, a zombie hunter. And he basically, you cannot trap a trapper. And basically just slices open the force field. So yeah, so basically Joe and Barry said to go and confront Mayor Bells, and Mayor Bells like, hey dude, Ralph Dibny was blackmailing him into the fact that he was blackmailing him. And Barry buys this in full because due to his past, due to Barry and Ralph's past, Barry just believes Ralph is wrong and doesn't hear Ralph's side of the story. He just comes in charging saying, really dude, you really blackmailed the mayor? And he's like, yeah. He's like, you were dirty then, you were dirty now. And he's like, hey, I was a good cop, I was a good detective, you tampered with evidence because the guy did it. So then Barry just puts his mouth into Dibny, and Dibny is like, and it's just like, whoa. Yeah, it's really weird to do that in real life, but rather than the show, because they use CGI to do that, because I don't think actually Grant Gustin put his hand into Hartley Sawyer's mouth. Yeah, Hartley Sawyer is really, controversial these days, but back then he wasn't. So yeah, so he's like, thanks for ruining my life a second time, Alan. So yeah, so he's like, so he basically meets with Mayor Bellows, and he's like, hey, here's the thing, but yeah, no, not really. I'm blackmailing the black. So he's like, you're unblackmailing the blackmail. Yeah, and then for some reason, Cisco just has video feed of Ralph Dibny and his former form. Caitlin drank him and gave him a drink that basically turned him back into his normal form. Now he can think of anything he wants. Now he has a six pack. So yeah, so he's like, Blastoids, you destroyed my planet. Yeah. So he's like, so he's like, hey Joe, what's up? Yeah. So he's like, die Blastoid. He's telling me, he's like, Breacher, he has nothing to do with it. And he's like, you're Wisdom Speedster, then die, Speedster. And then Cisco's like, what's up, guys? These guys had nothing to do. He's not a Blastoid. He didn't attack your planet. He did nothing. Do you? Come on, let's team up. So yeah, so he's like, and Barry's like, hey Ralph, you're the only one that can stop him. And he's like, why? And he's like, cause I know you. And he's like, he's like, Alan, you're the Flash. Everyone gets struck by lightning and dies, but you get speed powers. I like the Flash. Now I have to hate the Flash. That was a good line. And he's like, Ralph, come focus, man. So he basically throws Barry up there, and they stop Mirabelle's, and then Joe throws in a good line. He's like, still pregnant, man. So yeah, so then Gypsy and Breacher are leaving when he's like, hey, time to go, Cynthia. And she's like, Cynthia. And he's like, what's your name, Breacher? And he's like, Josh. And he's like, Josh and Cynthia. And she's like, keep calling me Cynthia. See where that gets you. And he's like, okay, bye, Gypsy. I love this show. I love Cisco. So yeah, so he's like, hey Ralph, you want to join the team? And he's like, sure. And he's like, do I get a code name? What about Plastic Man? And he's like, yeah, Cisco comes up with the code name. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. He's like, what made you look into Mayor Bellows anyway? He's like, yeah, it was a client. He did everything over the phone. He just came up with his last name, DeVoe. And then Barry, and he remembers how Abracadabra said there was Zoom, Thawne, DeVoe, and then when Saboteur said there's a cerebral inhibitor to use against DeVoe, he's like, does DeVoe mean anything to you? And he's like, And he's like, I smell mystery, and does his nose like this, and it makes a weird sound. I don't have the CGI face to do it. But anyway, that was, and it looked weird. He's like, I smell mystery, and then does the weird nose thing that he does. So anyway, that was episode. That was season 4, episode 4, Elongated Journey into the Night. I thought it was a pretty good episode. I kind of find it funny that Gypsy's real name is Cynthia and Breacher's real name is Josh. Like, those are the nice names. I'm guessing why she wants to keep the name Gypsy, because did HR even know her name is Cynthia? I have no idea. But anyway, that's it for this video. I'll see you next time for more of The Flash. Zoom, 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 zoom.